Hey, this is Kevin Winston with Digital LA. Super excited to talk about Ultraman with Tom. Tom, you want to introduce yourself and tell us, then we'll get into the conversation.
Sure, I'm Tom BREVOORT. I'm Marvel Comics executive editor, and I'm also directly editing the new Rise of Ultraman release that is coming up in just a few months.
Excellent. And what is the release date for that?
You would ask me that like I would know it, because I'm a knowledgeable person who has facts at my command. And yet, I don't have it off the top of my head. I'm sorry, it's September.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. All right. So I just want to get that right off in case anyone's wondering what Ultraman's out. What is that? So I like to take that right away. So it's September. Excellent. So you've been assigned an awesome task. Ultraman is beloved by Japanese culture for decades. People are very excited that it is now part of the Marvel under the Marvel title or licensing, and is being brought to the U.S. to American audiences. What are some of the key things that you wanted to be sure were intact as you were writing to bring this to American audiences? Some of them who already are very familiar with Ultraman and
Right.
love it and waiting for it, and some who might be new to it.
Well, that I think is exactly what the trick was from our point of view. I'm a long time tokusatsu fan, so I'm kind of familiar with the genre, the trappings of it, and all of the various series that have been done over the years, at least in a cursory sort of manner. But I know that for the average American audience member, they probably have not directly experienced Ultraman. It's like a new thing for them. And yet the character, in terms of its impact on Japanese culture, is one of the most iconic superhero characters that nation has produced. He really is, to Japan, what a Spider-Man or an Iron Man is in the States. So, thing one was gotta treat this like it's a big deal, like it's the real thing. The other thing is, there's just a difference between what you're able to accomplish in the comic book medium and what you're able to do, in a television broadcast program or a film, simply because the limitations of the medium are different. We don't have movement, we don't have sound, and tokusatsu is all about special effects. And on the one hand, we don't have special effects, and on the other hand, we have infinite special effects. We can anything that we can come up with, that we can imagine, and that our illustrators can visualize, and that our writers can conceive, we can put down on the page. The other thing that we can do, and that we at Marvel have been very adept at doing, and it's kind of our stock in trade in terms of the characters, is really getting inside the characters and letting you see who they are as individuals, as people, as human beings. Again, because it's very easy for us in the medium of comics, as opposed to in live action, to be able to tell you what a character is thinking, what a character is feeling, without it, it having to be brought out, through an actor's mannerisms, or for some other character in a scene to say, boy, you really seem upset by that, or what have you. So to us, this was really an opportunity to introduce Ultraman to a whole new audience, to tell and to sort of update and, not to be too arrogant about it, to Marvelize that original Ultraman origin story, to take everything that was there and make it so that people who remember it from the original 1966 broadcasts will go, right, I remember these characters, I remember the basics of this situation, I remember the essence of this, and there's plenty of little Easter eggs and fun little deep dive things that are sprinkled throughout it. But if you have had no contact with Ultraman at all, if this is your first time really encountering the character in the mythology, it's a super clean entry point that introduces you to all the characters, that makes you understand what makes them tick, what drives them, why they do what they do, how they do it, and that combines that with the sort of massive, explosive, unlimited budget visuals that we also can do very easily in comics, a lot easier than A.G. Tsuburaya could do it in real life, where he actually has to blow up a model, and I just have to draw something, and it's just as easy for that artist as it is to draw an unblown up city.
Right. So since we want to introduce some of our viewers now to Ultraman, what is the origin story of Ultraman in a nutshell for viewers who have never heard of him?
In a nutshell, and I don't want to give away too much about what we're actually doing in the book, but the essence of Ultraman is an alien. He's a being from this far off dimension, sort of an energy being, not so much a physical being, but a metaphysical being. And his people have risen to sort of the peak of perfection, and they are sort of these enlightened guardians of the universe. And one such Ultraman is journeying to Earth because we have a problem on Earth, which is the rise of kaiju, which are monsters that are sort of generated by a certain type of ill feeling and ill emotional unrest that is generated among the subconscious of the world. The Earth has a science patrol, and the science patrol is basically guys that are there who are trying desperately to deal with the rise of these giant monsters that they can't fathom or understand or fight, because they're so much more powerful than any weapons or technology we've got on the Earth. And there's the travel sphere of Ultraman enters the atmosphere. They don't know what it is. They think it's a UFO. They send up a ship with a guy to intercept it. There's a collision. It's an accident. And in order for both the Ultra and the pilot of the USP ship to survive, they must join together and become a single individual. And the Ultra will inhabit him, and in times of absolute need, the Ultra will manifest, and he will become Ultraman and grow to colossal size, and through the agency of the Beta Capsule, and contend with whatever threat to life, limb, humanity, public safety, cleanliness, pollution. There happens to be in the course of that particular story.
Got it. So cosmic force to protect the universe merges with a human being,
yes,
to become what we know as Ultraman. And
yes.
What's the power set?
Ultraman has a number of abilities. First off, he is naturally large. And by which I mean that while typically walking around as a human person, he's normal human sized. When he manifests himself as Ultraman, he almost immediately, grows to the size of a skyscraper. He's a 50-foot tall dude. Superhumanly strong, superhumanly adept at physical combat. Typically, when a fight goes down between Ultraman and a kaiju, it tends, at least in the earliest rounds, to be a very physical confrontation. Ultraman also has a finishing move, which is basically harnessing his internal energy into a devastating blast known as a spacium beam. When he makes a particular pose with his hands.
Can you do that pose on cam so everyone can see the beam?
I will attempt to do this. I'm sure I'm a little bit wrong, but it's the one hand goes up and the other hand crosses it, and the beam is generated sort of out of the flat of the palm of the hand. That tends to if that doesn't knock the kaiju flat on its back, pretty much nothing will. There's also a time limit that because Ultraman has been fused with a human being, there's only so long that he can manifest in the real world before bad things start to happen, and that is represented by the light disc that sits on his chest. That is normally, a happy, glowing color, but that will begin to turn and flash red as he's nearing, the end of his energy cycle and the end of how long he can remain manifest in the real world. So, every fight, every encounter, every battle has a natural ticking clock to it in terms of how long Ultraman can be in that fight, how much energy he can expend, and needing to be judicious about the actions that he takes.
Got it. So he does have some sort of limitation or weakness, I suppose, and that his power eventually runs out. How does he recharge? Just over time? He goes.
It's typically over time. In most instances, when Ultraman manifests, the crisis of the moment is solved, and he is not called upon to manifest again until another such thing happens. So I don't know that we've seen a lot of instances where he's had to manifest and then immediately manifest again and immediately manifest again. There's a little bit of a downtime or a recharge time in between most of those occasions. That having been said, it's certainly an interesting story point for, the kind of story that we at Marvel would like to do as we move ahead beyond just doing the origin and doing, new adventures of the character and exploring some of this stuff.
Yeah, that power limitation or fact, I suppose, is very Marvel in a way, and that the Marvel heroes tend to have, not be super all supreme,
Right.
And nothing can bother them. They all have some sort of Spider-Man runs out of web slinger,
Right.
etc. So yeah, that's definitely very, very in the Marvel world just to have and feature that. So when he's not fighting kaiju, what is his alter ego, just to let some people know?
In his civilian guise, he is a member of the USP, the Universal Science Patrol, who are basically a secret organization that are charged with going out, maintaining, the peace and the security of the world. They're sort of, again, in Marvel terms, they're sort of an equivalent of something like S.H.I.E.L.D. They're a secret organization that has a lot of advanced technology, and they have planes and ships and weapons, and they're trying to get to the bottom of what's causing these kaiju to come, why individually they're each here, because each one kind of is its own individual thing, an individual character with its own wants, desires, drives, and goals, how they can get a handle on all of this and keep safe the normal population of the world that is ill-equipped to deal with colossal monsters striding around the countryside. Basically deal with all of this stuff. So Ultraman as an alter ego, ends up being a powerful trump card that gets to be played in situations that the Earth might not otherwise have. And in the context of our Marvel story, there's a larger story going on about how this organization was founded, what's behind it all, what they're doing. There's some question about the motivations of certain characters within it, but again, all of this is kind of a backdrop to the larger, more spectacular goings on of Ultraman, kaiju, and these awesome conflicts.
Excellent. So because he's part of this special force that's tracking these kaiju, he when they might be out and about to switch into his Ultraman mode and go get them. So
Right. So he's naturally on the front lines of this. He himself has a history. He encountered a kaiju when he was very young and was rescued by agents of the ISP, who typically, when they do stuff very much in the manner of the Men in Black, they tend to zap people's memories so they don't remember that there was something weird and strange going on. Because one of the things that they do is when a kaiju manifests, reality in that immediate area tends to go a little screwy. So it's not even just that there's a big, huge beast that's there, but things begin to kind of distort and get weird and get kind of nightmarish and a little bit hallucinogenic. And so it's potentially a traumatic experience for anybody that goes through it. And so they tend to want to blank out people's memories of this. He ends up not going through this process. So he knows that there's something out there, and he's spent all of his years growing up trying to find out more about this organization, wanting to be one of them, wanting to do for other people what they had done for him as a kid, and not being able to get in, find a place among them, at least initially. And in fact, his closest friend ends up being a recruit and ends up being a part of this team and being the person that's on the inside. And this creates a little bit of tension and friction between them because he desperately wants to be a part of this thing, and he's been sidelined, he's been rejected. And she, on the other hand, is in, but is getting more and more misgivings as she's finding out more about this place, this organization, what is going on. And this all becomes the interpersonal drama that's the backdrop to all of the superheroics and monster fight.
You have led seamlessly into my next question, which was to talk about some of the supporting characters in his world. His best friend. Who are some of the other supporting characters? Maybe his.
Again, without it's not like we've invented anybody whole cloth. So pretty much everybody that's in our series was a part of the original 1966 show. In some cases, we tweak things a little bit. Our version of Ultraman is slightly younger than the 1966 version, because we wanted to start him out as a younger guy going in, and this being the culmination of his journey rather than be an established, seasoned monster fighter, which the original 66 version was. And that's just a choice based on what makes more sense in 2020 to an audience, and what resonates with them better than what did in 1966. But he is surrounded, with other members of this team. Most importantly, he's got a mentor figure in the head of their immediate unit. There's a larger division chief. There's a rogue scientist who had once been a part of the group, but who has been ostracized, possibly because he found out more than that he should have about things that were going on, and who's sort of in a morally gray area. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he both? And gets to be a wild card. And then each and every one of the individual kaiju is effectively, for all that they're enormous monsters, is effectively a character unto themselves as well. They've each got, as I mentioned earlier, it's a fairly rich history that they've all got their own individual things that drive them, that they want, that they hate, that they want to stamp out, that they want to step on. They're not quite as simply drawn as what you might typically imagine in the United States if you're thinking about a big, Godzilla-like monster. Even Godzilla had a lot of angles and attributes to him beyond just stomping across the landscape and setting things on fire. And in the same sort of way, the kaijus over the years have developed, these sorts of quirks of personality, let's say, that get to come to the fore as they do what they do.
Got it. So it's not just some crazy bad monster stomping all over the place. They actually have a little bit more going on than that. Great.
Yeah, and all of the situations that we try to present are not quite, hopefully, as simple as being black and white. That there is an area of gray where you can see whether or not you can empathize with them. You can see things from the point of view of the supposed villains, a human or a kaiju. You can kind of understand where they're coming from and why they're doing what they're doing. You may not agree with what they're doing, you may not support it, but you can kind of emotionally connect with it and go, right, they're not just doing bad stuff to be bad guys. They've got something that's driving them that's a little bit more meaty and more interesting to play with. than just being bad for the sake of being bad.
Right. So the first issue, a couple issues, is the origin story. Can you give viewers / readers a hint of some of the storylines that might be coming up? Whatever you can tell us.
Well, the first series is the Rise of Ultraman. It's 5 issues, and it is literally the origin. The first issue is oversized. It also features a secondary story that is an Ultra Q story. Ultra Q was the series that was a precursor to Ultraman, black and white series, the first of the Tsuburaya Ultra shows. And so we're doing an Ultra Q story as well, the artist of which is Michael Cho, who's a terrific artist and who has rendered the entire story with a very limited palette to kind of evoke this sort of black and white aesthetic of the original. The original Ultra Q from the 60s was sort of a weird Twilight Zone-y sort of show that also had monsters and kaiju. No superheroes in it at all. It was completely normal people dealing with the strange and the bizarre and the outlandish. And so we do a story with that, and that too fits into the continuity of our larger Ultraman universe. It connects to the main story. Once we get the first 5 done, we'll be doing a second run of 5, the title of which we have not yet completely landed on. Internally, we've just been calling it the something of Ultraman. But we're in the process now of nailing down exactly what the first actual adventure is. But by the end of that origin, by the end of those 5 issues, Ultraman, the Science Patrol, everybody's missions and directions will have been laid out in front of people, and you'll see all of the possibilities for stories that are to come. And we're figuring out now what the next thing is that we'll go to, because we don't need to get there until like February or March of 2021. So that's still far enough down the line. We don't have it all 100% solid. We're definitely going to use more classic kaiju. So every character, every beast, everything in this, is drawn from the original source material. The other thing that we feature in the first issue is that there's 3 one-page stories that were drawn by the Japanese art team Guruhiro.
Cool.
And these are based, they're not exactly like the Japanese versions, but they're based on the Kaiju Step program, which is this series using the Ultraman Kaiju that in Japan was aimed sort of more at a younger audience or a Pokemon style audience. And in our context, they sort of play like instructional manuals for the various USP soldiers of what to do and what not to do. And they're these sort of fun, satirical, kind of weird, kind of quirky little features that also are in the book. So that first issue is a big meaty read. You get a lot of content for your money. It covers a wide variety of Ultraman mythology, and it kind of sets the standard for what we're hoping to do with the character moving forward.
Very exciting. Can't wait. So someone is going to ask, or some fans are already asking, is the Ultraman universe related at all to the Marvel universe, the 6 ones, at all? Is there an Ultraverse, or could there be a multiverse dimensional crossovers?
I think it's certainly possible that we will get to some manner of Ultraman Marvel Universe crossover at some point. That's it's nothing that we've definitively talked about. We are doing for the first issue of Rise of Ultraman, Olivier Coipel, who's one of our most popular artists, did a piece, and it's the first time that Tsuburaya has allowed this sort of thing to happen. It's a piece of Ultraman with Spider-Man.
Okay.
And they typically don't, prefer not to mix the Ultraman characters with characters from other places. But because this was an important initiative for both companies, and they felt, very strongly about our involvement and so forth, they allowed us to do this one special piece that, shows Spidey, and he's kind of perched on Ultraman's enormous 50-foot shoulder. And it's the 2 icons from the two companies united. And hopefully, maybe that's a taste of something that could at one day, come to pass, and we could do a story in which Ultraman, meets and hangs out with, or battles alongside, or against even, Spider-Man or a Hulk or an Iron Man or a Daredevil or whomever.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us today and spending some time to talk about it. I know a lot of fans are super excited, and now there's some new fans. Hopefully, will be excited to go check it out with your great description and telling the story of this new world for some people and a favorite, beloved world for others.
Happy to be here. Have a great Ultraman Day, everybody, and hopefully we'll see you in September.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tom. Everyone, check out the book in September.